Hello everyone, this is your friend Shinobi Nexus 2.0 and we are back in new fanfic. And if you enjoy this fanfic, what if Naruto was Kaguya's third son? Part 3. Then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Naruto groaned, cracking his pale pupil-less eyes. He observed the leaves on the curved ceiling, the light filtering through the branches and vines. Naruto's eyes pulsed and he examined his surroundings from his spot on the ground. He was in the middle of a vast forest, plant and animal life surrounding the plant dome that he was inside. Outside the dome he discovered Gaara, gazing at a small campfire. Gaara. Naruto sat up suddenly but stopped when his head flared in pain. Don't overwork yourself, Naruto-kun, your Rinne Sharingan was not ready to perform that technique. Naruto heard his mother's berating and worried tone. Hello mother, Naruto answered, getting to his feet gradually and walking toward the vine wall that retracted out of his way as he heard his mother's good morning. As the vines retracted, Gaara looked over and saw his friend walk out of the dome. Nodding, he turned back to the fire, rotating a small rabbit on a stick. Gaara's clothes were soaked in blood, and there was a large hole in the cloth on his chest and back where he had been impaled. Glad to see you're okay, Gaara, Naruto said, sitting down next to the redhead on the grass. Thanks to you, Shukaku told me you used one of your mother's abilities to teleport us, Gaara replied, turning slightly and looking at Naruto. Yeah, but my body wasn't ready for it. Naruto winced. How long have I been out? A week. It took Shukaku 2 days to fully heal the hole in my chest, was Gaara's emotionless reply. Naruto moved his elbow on to his knee, supporting his chin. Well, obviously our escape didn't work quite like we would have liked. Anyway, do you want me to unseal our supplies? Naruto asked, seeing the assortment of things Gaara had created while waiting for Naruto to wake up. There was a small rock table, fire pit, and Gaara had also constructed a spit on which to cook animals over. On the rocky table there sat several bowls and cups made of sand. Yes please, Gaara replied. Naruto nodded and concentrated his chakra in his palm. The next moment there was a puff of smoke, and when it faded Naruto was holding a large scroll in his lap. Naruto handed the scroll to Gaara, who unrolled it and unsealed a change of clothes and some food. Walking a ways off, sand rose around Gaara in a small dome as he changed. Naruto felt his stomach grumble. Getting up and walking over to the scroll, he unsealed some food and cooking supplies. When Gaara came back, he found Naruto had moved his fully cooked rabbit off to the side and was now cooking soup in a pot. Gaara moved his sand through the air to the cooked rabbit that Naruto's plants were holding. Once taking it from the plants, they receded into the ground. Gaara transferred the rabbit over to the table where he proceeded to prepare it. Gaara had learned a lot from Shukaku over the last week while waiting for Naruto to wake up, including how to hunt and cook food. Surprisingly, the raccoon was quite good at such things. Naruto walked over a moment later with the pot, putting it down between them on the table, sitting cross-legged on the rocky surface. Gaara watched fascinated as Naruto held his hands apart for a few moments. Slowly a simple gray bowl formed in between his hands on the table. Naruto took a deep breath before holding his hand out. A couple of moments later a gray spoon appeared. Satisfied, Naruto distributed some soup into his bowl before beginning to eat. Gaara rose an eyebrow. As he finished cutting up the rabbit, his sand grabbed the ladle and distributed some of the soup into his own bowl made of sand. Afterward, a spoon made of sand appeared within the container as well. Gaara finished with the rabbit and took a bite of the meat before beginning to eat his soup. Naruto's eyes blanked as he ate his food slowly, enjoying the taste of the soup. Ka-san, do you know where we are? Naruto questioned. That would be a better question for your father. While I did transport you, I was just trying to get you out of there, Kaguya replied. Naruto nodded, and the next moment he felt his father's presence in his mind. Information about the shape of the world and where he was on it came to his head immediately. Thank you to San, Ka-san. Naruto received a feeling of happiness from both his parents in return. When his eyes refocused, he found Gaara looking at him expectantly. We are at the border between the land of rain and the land of wind, Naruto answered Gaara's unspoken question, getting a nod from the boy. Are our priorities still the same? Gaara asked, pulling off another bite of meat from the rabbit. Naruto nodded. Yes, the Nibi is still the first thing on the list. Mother says that absorbing will be less painful if down in order of the tails. We are going through rain, grass and waterfall territory before we get to Cloud Village, Naruto said before taking another spoonful of soup. Gaara nodded without looking up, continuing eating. Around 15 minutes later they both stood and cleaned up the camp, the wooden vine dome receding back into the ground. Naruto sealed the large scroll with their possessions into himself again. They both set out in the direction of the land of rain, traveling away from the land of wind and Suna. Several days later, Naruto and Gaara walked calmly through the trees, having made good progress through the land of rain. Naruto guessed it would take a couple weeks at the pace they had been going before reaching the Cloud Village. While Naruto and Gaara were both powerful for their age, they weren't as fast as Junin. Well, Naruto was if he used his helix. But then he would leave Gaara behind, and that would defeat the point. As Naruto walked, he practiced creating a random assortment of objects out of his chakra, trying to get the several-minute creation time down. It now took him 30 seconds to a minute depending on how complicated what he was creating was. Gaara besides him was working on creating a new technique he had come up with based on Naruto's Byakugan. It was incomplete, but by creating an eye of sand, he would close one of his own and be able to see out of it. Moving the eye around near him and seeing things usually hidden to him. As they walked, Kaguya watched from within her mindscape, proud of her son for going out into the admittedly dark shinobi world in an attempt to learn and help others. He is going to lead the war against my family, and I am sure that he will win. Kaguya thought, proud of her son and all that he has accomplished already. Gaara was a true friend and someone that truly valued and cared about Naruto, and Kaguya could tell that Naruto cared about Gaara. If it wasn't clear before Naruto awoke his Mangekyo Sharingan, then it definitely was after. Ah, I'll need to explain that later. He probably doesn't remember using the Sharingan and Mangekyo. Kaguya mused. Martial arts. Naruto suddenly stopped walking, staring off blankly. Gaara didn't notice for a moment, continuing walking for a couple of feet before turning and staring at the stock-still Naruto for a couple of moments. Gaara said nothing, waiting for his friend to finish talking to his parents. Naruto blinked, his pale eyes coming into focus and turning to him. Tu-san says that the Gobi is nearby and in trouble. He thinks we ought to go over there and help if possible, Naruto said. Gaara only nodded, waiting until Naruto leapt off into the trees before following after them. It took them about an hour of their fastest travel before they arrived at a pathway of sorts. In front of them for several yards, the trees were all torn up in a line, starting from the right and going to the left. Naruto raised a clipped circular eyebrow at the strange sight, tempted to follow the path to see where it led, but he continued on forward across the gap in the trees toward where his father sensed the Gobi. A couple of minutes later Naruto heard the rumble of a jutsu and saw a giant wave of water over the treetops. A loud roar of pain followed it directly afterward. Naruto and Gaara shared a look before stopping on the branches of the trees at the edge of a large mostly destroyed clearing. Within the clearing things were grim for the Five Tails. He had been battling his opponent all day, having been cornered by his opponent with a massive barrier that prevented him from using his immense speed to escape. While his opponent wasn't in the best of shape, Gobi was suffering many injuries and had shrunk down to the size of a small horse, his chakra being expended almost entirely in the long battle with the man in front of him. Said shinobi was wearing a black cape with a hood that came up over his head and hair, the lower half of his face obscured in the same black material, Around his neck was wrapped a blue scarf with the kanji for 5 on each end. His eyes were his jacket was dark blue with long sleeves. On his hands were 2 light blue gloves that ended like claws. Around his waist in a tilted slant was a dark yellow belt that had pouches attached to it in the back. He wore aqua-colored baggy pants that ended in his high black boots. Naruto's eyes widened as he noticed with his Byakugan that the man was soaking wet, continually dripping water onto the ground. Water gun. 2 guns. The man shouted, pointing a pointer finger from each hand toward the limping form of the smaller gobi. The horse-like dolphin's eyes widened, seeing the 2 water bullets fly through the air toward him. The gobi got to his feet and tried to move as quickly as he could out of the way. He dodged the first one, but the mysterious man had predicted that and the second bullet flew toward where he now was. The gobi's eyes widened, wrapping his tails in front of him in a makeshift shield. Before the bullet reached the gobi, it impacted a wall of plants and sand, stopping it in its tracks. The hooded man's eyes narrowed, looking around the clearing trying to find whoever defended his prey. "Come out before I come and find you," the man yelled, his purple eyes shifting around the trees. The next moment he watched as 2 boys appeared before the miniature gobi. His keen purple eyes alighted on the admittedly strange-looking duo. The one on the right had remarkably pale skin and 2 horns coming from each side of his head. The man's eyes narrowed as he saw the strange-looking boy's eyes, 2 pale pupil-less orbs glaring at him. The boy also had clipped circular eyebrows and wore a white kimono with a light green sash. The man was surprised to see a boy so young with white hair, which was shaggy and long, a bandaged bang coming of the boy's face. The other boy was not as interesting but still intriguing. Red hair with somewhat bloodshot green eyes, the boy had the kanji for love tattooed on his forehead. The man watched as sand flowed out of the large gourd on the boy's back, it swirling around him menacingly. The gobi's tails flared and were about to attack the boys when it suddenly stopped and apparently visibly relaxed, confusing the man. "Get out of here, brats," the man threatened, raising his hands slightly. The pale boy only narrowed his eyes at him. "Who are you?" the one with horns asked, his hand raising slightly as well. The blue-hooded man declined to answer, rushing forward. A blade of water formed in his hand. Naruto was surprised to see that this man who was strong enough to fight the gobi was not moving all that quickly. "He must be tired, we can most likely scare him off or possibly defeat him," Naruto mused. Turning to Gaara, he got a nod. "Great explosion," Naruto yelled, throwing his hand forward toward the rapidly approaching man. A massive explosion of black and white chakra went off directly in front of the approaching man. Gaara narrowed his eyes, wondering if the man survived Naruto's attack. Well, you have some power, I'll admit." Gaara was surprised to see the man reform out of water a couple of feet away from the decently sized crater. Naruto's expression didn't change from the blank look he'd had since appearing, having already seen the man shift into water as the explosion happened with his Byakugan. "Naruto-kun, you need to get this man away or escape with Kokuo." Kaguya's voice resounded in Naruto's mind. He sent back a mental nod. The soaking wet masked man decided not to wait around anymore. Firing off several large balls of water towards the boys, "Let's try intimidation then," Naruto thought grimly. The next moment massive amounts of plants, towering trees, and roots burst out of the ground, slicing and exploding the globes of water with relative ease before sliding in and out of the field toward the shinobi. Naruto noticed his Kurigakure headband, observing the cut through it. The man's purple eyes widened, seeing the massive literal forest growing toward him. He called upon all his remaining energy as he was already very exhausted from the long battle with the Biju. He dodged out of the way of the vines, then quickly dissolved into water as a spike of sand attempted to impale him. The man scowled, feeling his already very depleted chakra reserves from battling the gobi for so long. Naruto reached out his other hand toward the man in the blue clothes, Having failed intimidation, he was going to do his best to kill the man attacking the gobi. Naruto reached out for the man's chakra, feeling it much weaker than his own. The man's eyes widened as he felt a grip around his chakra. Jumping back immediately, he dissolved into water before disappearing into the ground. Naruto lost his grip on the man's chakra pool as it separated into thousands of droplets when he dissolved. Was all Naruto said as he turned to the gobi, but watching the man filter through the dirt away from them through the back of his head. Gaara turned away from the destruction they had caused a moment later, his face back into his emotionless expression. "Are you okay, Kokuo-san?" Naruto asked. Getting a shaky nod from the weakened gobi, Naruto's pale eyes met the gobi's blue-red ringed eyes and, "Hello Naruto-sama," came the calm male voice of Kokuo inside Naruto's head. Gaara watched as the horse-sized gobi and Naruto had a mental conversation, both their eyes glazing over familiarly. Gaara patiently waited until they were finished. A few minutes later, Naruto gained a frown before his eyes regained his focus. Naruto turned to Gaara. "The gobi is going to travel with us for now until he regains his power. Apparently the Biju can naturally be at this size as well." Gaara simply nodded, absorbing the information and filing it away. Naruto suddenly turned and stared out into the forest. Gaara could distinctly hear him mutter, "Dang it, I wasn't looking, again." "Gaara, we are surrounded." There was a pause as he narrowed his eyes. "All of them are rain ninja, don't attack." Gaara only nodded, his sand swirling around him protectively. "State your name and your purpose for being here. You are trespassing in rain territory." Gaara's eyes moved to the source of the voice, a ninja garbed in gray pants with a purple shirt. On top of that he wore a gray flak jacket and an Omegakure headband was on the back-haired man's forehead. "Let us go, and you can all live," Gaara replied, his voice empty and emotionless. "Who does the brat think he is, huh?" One of the AIM shinobi on a nearby tree yelled, getting a round of laughter from the 30 or so AIM shinobi surrounding them. "You will come with us to the Amekage, and he will decide what to do with you," the first shinobi ordered, eyeing them carefully. "Oh, can we just get a break?" Naruto groaned, pulling the shinobi's attention to him, some ignorant shinobi gasping at his strange alien appearance. Naruto tilted his head toward his friend, establishing a connection with him. "Do we go with them?" Gaara heard Naruto's voice within his mind. "Is there backup coming?" was the redhead's reply. Naruto turned his pale eyes toward the direction the shinobi came from, his vision expanding dramatically. "Yes, a lot more. The barrier must have dropped at some point in Kokuo's battle with the blue man. Then we go with them. We might be able to defeat them all, but trying to move the wounded Five Tails with us and escape is too much," was Gaara's analytic response. Naruto nodded in agreement to his friend's analysis of the situation. "There is no need for fighting. We will come peacefully to your cage," Naruto called out, the AIM shinobi all dropping to the ground around them one by one. Naruto, Gaara, and the much smaller gobi began walking toward the village hidden in the rain. Naruto chuckled to himself at the comedy of their situation. Before long they were joined by roughly another 50 AIM shinobi who joined their comrades in surrounding them. Naruto walked beside the somewhat limping gobi, stroking the horse's horns in a calming manner. Kokuo nuzzled his head farther into his uncle's hand happily. Amekage's office. The office of the Amekage was actually quite impressive. An elegant metal desk sat across the room from the sliding metal doors of his office. Along the walls were many works of art and he had 2 luxurious purple couches around the room. The office was themed in dark red and purple it seemed. Behind the Amekage was a wrap-around wall of glass that could be blacked out with chakra. The ever-falling rain of Omegakure beat against the window constantly, providing a soothing white noise to the room. The Amekage was currently turned in his chair toward the window, watching blankly as the rain fell down the glass, his mind elsewhere. "I wonder what that pulse of chakra was. It felt very similar to, The Amekage sighed. glad that he had sent backup to the first 30 shinobi he had sent out in response to the chakra source in his borders. Martial arts. The robed Cage turned as he sensed another person enter the room via Shunshin. Lord Amekage, sir. The gray-haired Junin saluted the violet-eyed man in cage robes sitting behind his desk. Yes. Report Wizoso. The Amekage said sternly, getting a nod from his subordinate. The shinobi you sent to the site of the detected chakra pulse have returned, sir. No casualties and they brought 2 children, and sir, the 5-tail, sir. In a smaller size, the Amekage's eyes widened at the report, but he sensed that was not all. Continue. The Junin stiffened. One of the 2 children is very strange. The Junin shuddered slightly, causing his leader to raise an eyebrow. He has 2 horns, white hair, and trimmed eyebrows, and sir, he has no pupils, his eyes are entirely pale. The Junin finished his report. The Amekage steepled his fingers together, thinking. Wizoso-san, bring them in. Hi, sir. The Junin disappeared in a burst of smoke. The Amekage turned to the one other occupant in the room, a 6-year-old red-headed child with violet eyes like his own. Nakada-kun, I'm going to have to ask you to leave my office for right now. The Amekage said kindly, getting a whine from the red-headed boy standing by his desk. Do I have to, Nagato-sensei? The boy whined playfully, causing Nagato to chuckle. Well, you can stay, but it could be dangerous. If something goes bad, you are to leave by the secret exit immediately and go to Konan-chan, do you understand? Nagato said sternly, getting a firm nod from his cousin. Nagato understood Nakada's want to meet these people, and a part of him just couldn't help granting Nakada's desires when he could. A Junin appeared a moment later in a swirl of water. Lord Amekage, you will have to come outside to meet them. The 2 children refused to enter your office without the gobi, and the gobi is too large to enter the building, sir. You could clearly hear the Junin's slight amusement at delivering such an odd report. Understood. We are coming, Nagato replied. Standing, he began walking toward the doors to his office, followed closely by Nakada. A couple of minutes later, Nakada and his cousin entered into one of the biggest holding cells within the village. The village had put a lot of effort into industrialization, and therefore everything was made of metal. Nagato chuckled as he heard Nakada complain for the millionth time about the rain. They turned a corner, and Nagato quickly took in the strange sight before him. In the middle of the large room lay the gobi, its 5 tails wrapped protectively around 2 children that were close to the age of Nakada. One was as his Junin had described, the horned boy's pale eyes immediately connecting with his own upon his entrance. Nagato was intrigued by the strange youth wearing a white kimono and green sash. His vision shifted to the other boy, a redhead with the kanji for love tattooed on his forehead. The boy wore clothes that reminded him of Suna, and the large sand gourd he carried on his back confirmed his suspicions. Surrounding the strange intruders were around 70 of his shinobi. Nagato moved inside of the perimeter his men had established, gesturing for Nakada to stay back. What are you doing in the land of rain? Nagato's first impulse was that these were only children, but he had learned before that even children could be deadly opponents if underestimated, and the feeling he got from the pale boy only reinforced this belief. We were not staying, only passing through. The pale boy responded. Nagato turned to him and saw his eyes looking past him. Following his eyesight, he found it rested on his cousin. He moved protectively between him and Nakada. Hello, Kyubi, Nagato faltered, immediately glancing toward his cousin and seeing him confused over the boy's greeting. I need to explain that to him right after this. Nagato thought. The pale-eyed boy's eyes shifted back to him. He got the distinct impression the boy was looking through him at Nakada, Byakugan. He's from Konoha. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Shiroi Oni. My friend here is Sandman, and I assume you already know that this is the gobi. Naruto gestured to the large horse Biju behind him, who only continued to stare at everyone in the room carefully. Nice to meet you. I am Uzumaki Nagato, the Amekage of the Rain Village. Nagato replied cautiously, his senses more focused on the two boys. He found them to have massive chakra reserves. The redhead had to contain a biju to have that much, and the Shiroi Ona's chakra was utterly astounding. His chakra is so thick, potent. Now that we have that out of the way, the one who introduced himself as Shiroi turned again toward Nakata, who had moved to be able to see the strange trio in the middle of the room. What do you want? Nagato pulled the pupil-less boy's attention back to him. He was deeply unsettled by the strange kid's fascination with his cousin. I would like to talk to the holder of the Kyuubi, Naruto replied evenly. Gaara stood to the side with his hands crossed, letting his brother handle this as he saw fit. Kokuo just watched, keeping an eye on as many shinobi as possible. He didn't like being in a small space, but he trusted his uncle. Why would you want to do that? Nagato asked suspiciously. Well, you see, I am collecting all the biju as is my right. Naruto replied, turning entirely back to the man in front of him. And how do you think you are going to manage that? Nagato asked, genuinely curious and in slight disbelief, though he has seemed to have tamed the gobi. Don't let my size fool you, Amekage. There is a good reason for why I am searching for them. There isn't much that anyone can do to stop me from achieving my goal anyway. In the coming years, I will find all the biju. Naruto declared. Nagato stared uncertainty at the young boy as he turned to Nakata once more. Nagato watched as his eyes glazed over for a couple of moments before refocusing. The one with the gourd had yet to move or visibly react since they entered the room. It seems the Kyuubi is not yet awake. Naruto extended his hand toward Nakata, who looked unsettled and bewildered. Nagato tensed, preparing for an attack of some kind. Come with us, we are creating a place for those that are scorned, hated, despised. A place where they can live in safety, love, and with those that are like them. A place where there is no judgment, no condemnation, Naruto stated. Nagato watched in horror as Nakata looked enticed by the offer. No, Nakata will stay here with me where he belongs. He will not go with you, and you aren't going anywhere. It's not often that a tailed beast waltzes into my village, I'll be taking it off your hands. Nagato growled, his brotherly instincts kicking in as he leapt between the strange pale child and his cousin. I will not let anyone take Nakata from me. With that thought, purple chains burst from his back, floating around him menacingly. Taking that as a signal, all the AIM shinobi drew weapons and prepared to subdue the children. They could all feel the power the white-haired child emitted, and he was not to be taken lightly. They also had confidence in their leader to subdue the biju, which would flatten their village otherwise. Ni-san, it seems that we've overstayed our welcome, let's go. Nagato watched in as sand burst violently from the redhead's gourd before flying across the ground toward the wall opposite from him, forcing his shinobi to leap out of the way or be caught. The white-haired boy nodded before quickly extending his hand toward the now vacant wall. Okina Bakahatsu. The wall exploded violently a second later in black and white smoke. Like an exploding tag had been activated on the wall. The chunks of wall flew across the room, a dust smoke screen rising up. Nagato was about to leap forward and attack when he heard a moan. Turning quickly, he realized that Nakata had been nailed in the head with a large piece of stone and was bleeding profusely. Go, get them, Nagato yelled distractedly, trying to stop the extreme bleeding coming from Nakata's head. Now regretting suppressing the Kyuubi as he had been working on Nakata's seal and making it where Naruto could actually speak to the biju, he'd apparently messed something up with his first seal. Nagato planned to reveal to Nakata that he contained the Kyuubi in a few days and then enter his mindscape with him to meet the fox, though he would have to explain it sooner now. In the raining streets of Amegakure, 3 bodies landed lightly on the ground. My sand is not going to be very effective here, Gaara growled disappointedly. His one weakness by far was water, and it covered everything here. Looks like it's going to be a lot harder to get out of here than I thought. My explosion has alerted the two other powerful chakra signatures as I mentioned earlier, both are on their way. We need to move. Naruto replied sternly. Both Gaara and the Gobi nodded, but before they moved they found themselves surrounded. Plants burst from the ground and swatted a shuriken aside that was flying toward Naruto. Naruto turned and glared at the rain shinobi now surrounding them. His 360 degrees of vision saw Gaara besides him, a wall of wet sand erected in front of him, kunai and shuriken embedded in it. Behind him, he saw the Gobi snarling at the shinobi surrounding him, his tails moving around quickly, but still not as strong as they normally would be. Flora and fauna. Naruto quickly observed the 80-ish shinobi surrounding him, trying to come up with a solution to their predicament before the two rapidly approaching signatures appeared. He was surprised that the Amekage didn't follow them but was glad that he did not. Kaguya watched from within the mindscape. She hadn't offered advice on what to do when the AIM shinobi first appeared, letting Naruto make his own choices and learn from them. But her Masuko was in a pickle now. Naruto-kun, you know how you can feel their chakra pools. Try to feel them all and latch onto them. Naruto's eyes widened at his mother's order. But mother, I can't possibly wrestle away nearly 80 ninjas' chakra at one time. Naruto replied in confusion, the situation outside at a standstill. No, I want you to try something different. Imagine your chakra physically connecting to them, then channel your father's senchakra into all their chakra pools. It should kill them all if you pour enough senchakra into it, Kaguya explained. Naruto nodded, feeling his father's approval of the plan and his father's unique energy filling his being. Naruto raised his fist above his head, gaining the attention of everyone present. Channeling chakra to his hand, he directed almost 80 strings of chakra to fly through the air near instantly and latch themselves to the shinobi's chests. Before any could react or attempt to detach themselves from his chakra strings, he channeled his father's senchakra through the links. Kaminoki. Uchinaru Jiko no Hakai, God Tree, destruction of the inner self. Naruto called out. A split second later the air was filled with screams of horrific pain before they were brutally silenced, their bodies deteriorating into the air. Civilians farther down the streets witnessed something that they had never seen before. Red rain, the blood-vaporized forms of the nearly 80 shinobi mixing with the ever-falling rain of the village and raining down on the walls and street, covering it in blood. Only one shinobi managed to survive, being exceptionally talented in suppressing his chakra. Naruto's technique had been unable to latch onto him. The dark brown-haired Chunin stared at Naruto's pale horn face, his own face entirely white in shock and horror, his body shaking with terror. Naruto's pale eyes turned and entirely focused on the sole survivor of his massacre, making said man back up a couple of steps subconsciously. Tell everyone what you saw here, a young boy who made the sky rain red. Remember my name. I am the master of chakra, the second coming of the Kaminoki, the Shiroi Oni. Naruto turned as he was nuzzled by the Gobi, his eyes connecting with the large horse-like bijus. I've got enough energy to carry you and your friend out of here. Naruto nodded. Thank you. After that, we will find a place for you to rest and regain your strength. The Gobi crouched down so that Naruto could climb onto his back. Get on Gaara, Naruto said, helping the red-headed boy up and seating him behind him. Hold on using chakra Naruto-sama. Naruto heard in his mind, only having enough time to communicate the advice to his friend before the Gobi shot off down the streets in a speed blur. The sole survivor of the massacre that would later be named collapsed to the ground in relief, his mind overloading in shock from the death of so many of his comrades. So effortlessly, so easily, he killed them all like flies. The Chunin's thoughts became more and more fearful before he fainted on the ground. A moment later a man with orange hair materialized out of the water nearby. Hours later, the survivor of the Shiro Ona's massacre woke up with a scream and frantically looked around the chamber, his nightmare-filled sleep coming back to haunt him and making him think the boy with the pupil-less pale eyes was in the room with him. The Chunin shuddered in fear, the pale horned face of the emotionless boy appearing before him. He can't be human. He can't. No please. A moment later the door to the room burst open, people in medic uniforms walking quickly to the hyperventilating patient's bedside. They did their best to calm the traumatized teen down but failing miserably. A moment later they injected him with a calming drug, knowing that Amekage-sama was coming and would want answers and he needed to be in a fit state to answer. The man calmed down slowly, his breathing returning to normal but his eyes still containing that look of horror within them. Again the door to the room burst open, revealing an irked Amekage, his robes fluttering behind him as he walked quickly to the Chunin. Ah, the survivor has finally awoken. Now I can finally get some answers. Nagato muttered toward the end to himself, his mind still processing the entire ordeal. He had just come from Nakata's hospital bed, the doctors telling him that Nakata would have a concussion and be out of it for several days. The Chunin began shaking violently again, the medics trying to hold him down and inject him with more calming medicine. What the hell is wrong with you, Seiko? Nagato asked, trying to keep his anger and stress out of his voice. What the hell happened? The traumatized teen Chunin's memory replayed the boy's last words. That BB boy. He killed everyone. There was nothing left of them, just red. Seiko said shakily, stammering through his words, his eyes unfocused. Anatomy. How the hell is that possible? Who the hell was that boy? Nagato nearly shouted. I'm saying that word a lot again. Nagato had found that when he was particularly stressed, he favored the word hell consistently, though that didn't matter at the moment. He said that his name was the Shiro Oni. He stuck his hand up in the air and strands of chakra attached themselves to everyone. A second later they were gone, nothing left except for red. The Chunin had the distinct look of reliving the entire memory. Nagato slapped his cheek, bringing him back to the present. Seiko gulped, trying to get himself under control. After that, they both got on top of the gobi, the next second they vanished. He got out, determined to at least finish his report. He could feel the darkness creeping up on him, the need to slip into the warm embrace of unconsciousness was overwhelming. Did he say where he was going? Nagato pressed. No Amekage, Sama. The mental trauma was too much for the teen shinobi, and he passed out on the hospital bed once more. Nagato stared thoughtfully at nothing for several moments. Take care of him. When he wakes up, send him for mental therapy. The poor boy is going to need it, Nagato ordered before turning and walking briskly out of the room, heading toward his office. Whoever you are, you will not be taking my cousin away from me. Ooh. Cages of a hidden village rarely leave their domain. Since they were the most powerful shinobi, it often left a large opening in the defenses of the village that enemies could exploit. The only situations where it was not frowned upon was when the Chunin exams were being hosted in a different hidden village, alliance talks and diplomatic missions. Sarutobi Hiruzen didn't care about the formalities at the moment. When the request for a talk about trades and changing some things in their alliance had come from the cage of Suna, he had immediately set out as soon as possible. Wanting to get away from the village. The situation in the village was disastrous. The news that Nakata had left the village, and the subsequent information about his parents and that he was the Kyuubi Jinchuriki had shocked Konoha to its core. Many villager and shinobi realizing their mistake. The village was part outraged, and in mourning, no one quite sure how to feel and turned their rampant emotions upon the Hokage, which he deserved, but that's beside the point. Sarutobi had just reached the edge of the Suna village, surrounded on all sides by his 8 Anbu personal guard. Sarutobi noticed the distinct lack of sufficient guards at the gate as a Chunin approached them. Welcome to Sunagakur, Hokage Dono. The Suna Chunin bowed before leading them into the village and toward the Cage Tower. Lord Cage is expecting you inside. The Chunin gestured toward the doorway and moved out of the way. Sarutobi motioned for his Anbu to wait outside the Cage's office before walking inside. Ah, greetings Hokage Dono, thank you for accepting my invitation on such short notice. The Cage gave a slight bow of his head. Thank you for your kind invitation Cage Dono, I had time free, so I felt that coming as soon as possible would be best, Sarutobi replied, sitting in the red chair in front of the Cage's desk. Sarutobi and Rasa talked for around an hour about the new trade routes between the villages and slight changes in their treaty between the two neighboring lands. As the conversation came to a comfortable lull, Sarutobi decided to ask something that had been bothering him. Pray tell, where most of your shinobi are. I saw as I walked through the village that there was hardly any high-level ninja present, mostly Chunin and Genin. Sarutobi asked in an off-handed way, not wanting to come across as digging for information. The Cage waved his hand, sighing heavily. They're dead. Around 30 of my more higher-ranking shinobi were all killed a couple of weeks ago. Rasa sighed. Sarutobi's eyebrow raised in interested at who could kill off that many shinobi. Sarutobi was somewhat put off when Rasa didn't continue on, but understanding that this was possibly a confidential matter he changed the subject. With Naruto. 3 days later, Naruto sat cross-legged against a tree as he continued to practice his unique abilities with his bloodline. He was trying a new branch of the shinobi arts, but with his own spin on it, genjutsu. The difference between his genjutsu and others was that he genuinely manipulated the chakra directly into someone's senses. While this had a range of benefits, it has its downsides as well. Naruto didn't actually know any genjutsus, which meant he had no sort of preset illusion to work with, having to start entirely from scratch and concentrate on manipulating the chakra. This made his illusions much harder to break, but he could lose concentration and drop the genjutsu prematurely. Naruto's eyes were also different as he stared at his chakra flowing lazily through the air around him, instead of his usual pale, pupil-less orbs. He had 2-3 Tomo Sharingan watching the chakra flow, which helped him to control the chakra easier. After their escape from Omegakure, the Gobi had run quite far, traveling the remaining distance between Omegakure and the border with the Land of Grass. The Gobi had collapsed afterward in complete exhaustion, and they'd set up camp. Naruto with the help of his father had constructed a large dome of vines and trees. 3 trees were in a triangle and leaned together, their branches interlocking and creating support for the vines to latch on. Within the dome there were sizable fluorescent flower bulbs that lit up the interior. He'd made the grass much softer inside the dome. They'd then help the Kokuo inside, and the Biju promptly fell asleep on the soft grass. Since then the horse-like Biju had woken up a couple of times but mostly slept. Naruto and Gaara had agreed to stay here for a month or so before continuing on toward Cloud Village. Much had happened in their travels thus far, and Naruto had relied on his parents to get him out of sticky situations multiple times. Both Gaara and Naruto felt the need to get stronger in their personal skills. Naruto sighed and released his control over his chakra, absorbing it back into his body. Staring out over the clearing he saw Gaara once again working on his third eye jutsu. Sitting near the smoldering smoking remains of their fire from last night. They had both woken up early in the morning and begun training. Gaara, I'm going to go to that nearby village I saw and buy more food, we are getting low on provisions, Naruto said, obtaining a nod from his red-haired companion who had 2 fingers covering one eye. Naruto was amused to watch the eyeball of sand above the boy turn to him and whirl around. Naruto walked into the plant hut-like dome, seeing the Gobi once again sleeping soundly in the corner of the room. Naruto smiled, glad to have been able to help Kokuo. The horse hadn't decided if he wanted to continue traveling with them, but he hadn't been awake very much lately to think about it either. Naruto walked over to where their large scroll sat in the grass that covered the floor of the dome, Placing his hand on the seal, he summoned their bag of money in a puff of smoke. A moment later, the bag disappeared into his hand. Naruto quickly left the dome, Gaara giving him a nod as he blew away into a black and white smoke in the silent wind that filtered through the trees farther into the land of grass. Naruto skimmed swiftly across the ground, finding the main road a couple of minutes later. As he continued toward the village, he ran into small assemblies of civilians, and even a Kumo team made up of a Junin and 3 Genins. One of them had a lollipop in his mouth. Naruto reared farther into the air above the main road as he entered the quaint village. Spotting a shop, he coasted his smoky form within a nearby alleyway before reforming from the smoke in the darkness of the alley. Naruto was about to walk out into the street before he paused. He began to mold his chakra to his will with relative ease, and slowly a large white baggy hood formed from the collar of his kimono. It built up the back of his head before coming over and covering his horns. Next, a white face mask that came up to his nose crawled up his face. Satisfied with his disguise, Naruto walked out into the street and into the shop to buy supplies. When Naruto exited the last store he wished to enter, he had several things sealed back within his arm, mostly food, but he'd also bought a few more sealing scrolls in case Gaara wanted some of his own, a detailed road map of the land of grass that travelers often used in a new bingo book. Naruto-kun, have you thought about how your village will be run? Where it will be? Kaguya's voice asked in his head. Naruto was pleasantly surprised by his mother's sudden voice. She often didn't speak unless spoken to, silently watching over him. I've decided that some of the techniques I have with this bloodline will become common knowledge to my shinobi. I'm still thinking about where to put my village. My hope is I find a place on these travels, was Naruto's reply. Kaguya was about to respond when Naruto heard something that drew both their attention away. Freak! Get out of here! Why do you keep coming back? No one likes you! A boy's voice yelled not far from Naruto. His interest piqued. Naruto activated his eyes with a pulse of chakra. His vision flying through the streets of the village. A moment later he found a group of boys. In front of the kids was a girl about 4 years old crying. Naruto's anger spiked, dissolving into a black and white mist in the middle of the street faster than he ever had before, and drawing gasps from the civilians around him, he flew through the crowds, sliding between people with ease in his smoky state. Not a moment later, Naruto reformed from the smoke behind the group of 3 boys that were bullying a small girl. What's going on here? Naruto's voice held a dangerous tone. All 3 boys turned toward him, feeling his angry aura and Naruto's now red 3-tomo Sharingan spinning menacingly. None of the boys replied, fearful of the boy that had magically appeared in the white robes. Not getting an answer, Naruto walked right past them all and knelt beside the sobbing girl. She had light blue hair with a simple garb which was frayed around the edges. Are you alright? Naruto questioned kindly, putting his hand on her back and trying to comfort her. The girl's head hung low. Naruto couldn't see her face, but he could hear her calming down slightly. He heard her sniff, but she didn't respond. Angry at the boys for bullying someone defenseless, something he was against, he turned and glared with his spinning Sharingan at the 3 boys. Scram! Naruto snarled out. Only one backed up slowly before turning tail and running away quickly. Naruto's keen eyes saw the 2 remaining boys' faces go pale. Someone mind telling me why you were picking on this girl? Naruto asked, his voice transmitting his message clear. Answer incorrectly and you will regret it. One of the boys gulped loudly before responding, his eyes unable to leave the glowing red ones from the darkness inside the scary boy's white hood. She wears stupid clothes, and she hasn't got any eyes, he said, immediately knowing the robed in white newcomer was not happy. Genjutsu. Sharingan. Naruto said calmly, and the vision of the 2 boys became black. A pair of red eyes filled their view. They were afraid, so very afraid of the eyes that held death and destruction. The next moment their vision returned. They turned tail and running both boys disappeared around the corner of the street seconds later. Hey, it's okay now, they're gone now. Naruto tried to comfort the crying girl, giving her a small hug without being too assuming. Naruto rubbed her back as she calmed down. Naruto directed his arm behind them, concentrating. He formed chakra into an uncomplicated gray bench. He lifted the girl to her feet before sitting down on the new seat with her. Naruto sat there for a few minutes with the girl. He honestly felt he needed to stay and talk to her, help her back home possibly if she wished. Thank you, mister, the girl finally spoke, sniffing a few times and rubbing her eyes from the tears. You're welcome, I've been bullied before, so I know how it feels. What's your name? Mine is Naruto. Naruto replied. The girl turned and took in Naruto's masked face, obscured by the white material of his hood and face mask. Naruto was able to see her face. The first thing his now pale eyes taking in were her eyes. They were completely blank. Not like the Byakugan, which had an iris, just no pupil. Hers were entirely white, bare, and silver tinted. Naruto rose a clipped eyebrow at what he was seeing. My name is Rei. Naruto nodded, smiling behind his mask. Somehow Rei must have seen or sensed his smile because she smiled back at him. Rei is a nice name, Naruto commented, getting an enthusiastic nod of agreement from the small girl. Rei, why were those kids picking on you? Was it because of your eyes? Naruto inquired, wondering what her side of things was like. He saw her stiffen, having backed up respectfully when she stopped crying. I'm not going to hurt you, Rei, if that's what's scaring you, Naruto reassured the blue-haired girl. She visibly relaxed. Yes, people seem to want to stay away from me and my grandmother. My eyes are different than everyone else's. My grandmother knows why, but she won't tell me. Rei said sadly, trailing off to a whisper at the end, but Naruto still heard her. Naruto-kun, she has the clear eye, a Kekkei Genkei eye, invented as a counter to the Byakugan and Sharingan. I'll tell you more about it later. You should offer to take her home, Kaguya said, getting a mental nod and thanks from her son. Come on, I'll take you home, Rei-san. Where do you live? Rei seemed to look through the darkness obscuring his face for a couple of moments before coming to a decision. I'm not allowed to show people the way to where I live, but I feel like I can trust you. Rei seemed to nod to herself before hopping off the seat. Naruto smiled, following after her. The bench dissolved into chakra and reabsorbed into Naruto. He sped up, walking beside the younger girl. He was surprised when she grabbed his pale hand and led him through the streets and alleyways of the village. Before long they came to a narrow alley, a door that seemed to be so old it was rotting and looked ready to crumble at the slightest hint of pressure. Reminds me of the places I used to live in Suna before I met Gaara. Naruto mused. He directed his Byakugan through the wall. He was surprised to see that he could only see a set of stairs to another floor underground before being unable to look beyond the door. Naruto? Rei asked. Having opened the doorway and stepped through, she looked at him curiously. Sorry, was thinking, Naruto replied, getting a nod from the blue-haired girl before following her down the stairs, as she pulled out a small knife. Oba-san doesn't trust people, and even old she is very strong, but she has to lay down all the time. Rei seemed to almost be warning him, making Naruto slightly wary. Those who have no choice in doing something can work to find a way to adapt to their situation, Naruto quietly said, more to himself than anyone else. Rei nodded and cut her finger. Naruto watched as she put some of her blood on the door. An elaborate seal that Naruto couldn't even begin to understand appeared and glowed before fading. The door popped open. Rei put the blade away and pushed open the door. Oba-san is really good with written seals. I think she said that she was a seal master. She said she learned from someone named Dok. I forgot. Rei gave up and continued into the house. Naruto's vision quickly took in all the visible rooms, which was a living room and the kitchen, the other rooms having doors on them and he couldn't see through the walls, I'm guessing seals are doing that then. Naruto observed that the room was reasonably well lit, the ceiling actually just being a spot of light. Also some sort of seal. The visible rooms look well kept, but they lacked really any sort of decorations, making it very dull. Ray began walking toward a closed door. My family and I snuck into grass country when I was only a few months old. Oba-san says that they died trying to protect me and Oba-san when we fled. Ray explained as she reached for the door. The next moment several things happened. The door suddenly was pulled open from the inside. Naruto's activated dojutsu was suddenly able to see inside and he could make out a bedroom almost as sparse as the rest of the place. At the door was an old lady with shoulder-length gray hair, a simple white kimono, her eyes the same as Ray's. Kaden. Fenikusu Fumetsu no Hai, Phoenix Immortal Fire. The lady yelled her hands together in the snake seal. Naruto realized as many balls of fire shot across the room toward him that she'd started the jutsu before opening the door. Naruto eyed the fireballs coming. Knowing that he could allow the plants to block the attack, he decided not to, instead switching into his mist form near instantly right before the fire connected with him. The fireballs going through the black and white mist that now covered the place he had been standing. Ray let out a glass-shattering shriek and stared in horror at where Naruto had just been seconds ago. Ray turned quickly toward her Oba-san to see her leaning against the door frame for support as she breathed heavily. Ray was about to scream at her grandmother before she was beaten to it. Ray, why in Kami's name did you bring that person down here? You know how much danger. Ray's grandmother scolded her granddaughter, but she stopped as she saw the black and white smoke that had appeared begin to reform into the masked boy that had been standing there beforehand. Naruto rolled his neck, forcing a transformation that fast into smoke was not a comfortable nor painless thing. For a grandmother, you are pretty strong, Naruto complimented, popping his neck but not actually looking at either of them, though there was no need for him to, he could see them anyway. Naruto? Ray asked in disbelief and happiness, her eyes moist from the fresh tears she had just been crying. Naruto nodded. Do you always attack everyone who isn't your family? Naruto asked, slightly enjoying the look of disbelief and shock on the grandmother's face. Naruto noticed with his all-seeing eyes a vast amount of paper, ink, and quills stacked in the room behind the old lady. Naruto sighed. Turning to leave, he began walking toward the door through which he had entered. Naruto, where are you going? Ray asked, making Naruto pause and turn to her for the sake of manners, again not needing to turn to see her. Your Oba-san doesn't want me here, Ray, and I understand that. Besides, I need to get back to my niece-san. Have a good day, Ray-san, Oba-san. Naruto said, walking forward again before turning once more to Ray. Oh, and if those kids come and bully you again, just tell them they'll get a visit from me. Perhaps we will see each other again one day, bye. With that, Naruto opened the door and dissolved into his smoke form before blowing out of sight and through the cracks in the top door. Ray watched with wide blank eyes until the smoke had disappeared. It was amazing to watch Naruto dissolve from the top of his head to his feet into white and black smoke. Ray's mind finally caught up, and she began to cry. What did he mean by those kids that bullied you, Ray? Ray's grandmother asked. Ray turned and spent the next few moments telling her mother about how she had met Naruto through her tears. He did that. I need to apologize to the boy. Right now I think you need to go find your friend. She didn't need to say anything more. Ray shot to her feet and raced out the door and up the stairs the second she had her Oba-san's approval to find her new and first friend. The old grandmother sighed. She had attacked the first person her granddaughter had ever made friends with out of suspicion and fear. She needed to apologize, and something about that kid, his aura was powerful. Village in the Land of Grass. Naruto had quickly left the basement-like area that Ray lived in. Flying up into the sky, he remembered that he wanted to get some scrolls about ninja arts. Recalling that he had seen some in one of the weapons stores, he glided through the air as a formless cloud of black and white smoke before reforming in front of the shop, once again drawing gasps from the civilians around him. Naruto sighed. Rei wasn't kidding. Not only was her grandmother not very trusting, but she was quite hostile in fact. He couldn't blame her though. He understood the value in not trusting. He didn't trust anyone when he grew up alone in Suna. Naruto walked inside and was surprised to see a shinobi also in the shop. She had long spiky red hair and amber eyes. Naruto also saw her dark skin, which some people in Suna had from tanning too much. Naruto noticed that the girl was staring at him suspiciously. She probably saw me form outside. Not bothered by her stare, Naruto found the scrolls he was looking for, basic ones on how to walk on walls and water with chakra. Paying for the manuscripts, Naruto left the building, entirely ignoring the redhead that was staring at him. Naruto had just stepped outside the building when he heard a familiar voice yell his name. Turning, he saw Rei with his Byakugan weaving through the crowd toward him. He patiently waited until she made it to him. Please, Pant, wait. Oba-san wants you to come back so she can apologize. Pant, please don't leave. Rei asked, her eyes going wide and begging, which was slightly weird since she didn't have irises or pupils to speak of. I don't have to go back to Gaara till later today, Naruto mused, wondering why the Rei's grandmother would change her mind, and not minding spending time with the girl. He allowed her to lead him back through the village to the door he had left not long ago. Before long they were back inside the sparse living room of Rei and her grandmother's home. Naruto walked in and gave a slight bow to the old lady as a sign of non-hostility, who was lounging on the couch in the living room. Hello, Naruto-san, my deepest apologies for attacking you. As I heard Rei explain, we've been on the run and hiding for some time. The lady explained. It's fine, I understand your suspicions. I grew up in a similar life in my home village, Naruto replied respectfully. The grandmother gestured to sit and he did so. Allow us to start over. My name is Shoiha Kazumi. I am a seal master, or rather mistress. Rei already explained the gist of our history. Kazumi started. Naruto nodded. My name is Naruto Otsutsuki, third son of Kaguya Otsutsuki, and possess a bloodline unique to me, among others, Naruto replied, phrasing his introduction similar to the Kazumi's. Kazumi raised an eyebrow at his last comment. If you don't mind, may I ask why you wear a hood and mask? Naruto shook his head, showing that it didn't bother him. If you promise not to freak out, then I have no issue with taking it off. Kazumi nodded, and Rei nodded excitedly as well. Naruto lifted his hands up, slipping the hood up over his horns and off, as well as sliding the equally white face mask down around his neck. Kazumi and Rei took in the strange boy's features, his horns and pale skin, white hair and pale eyes. Nay, are your eyes like mine, Naruto-san? Rei asked curiously. While the horns were different, she wasn't really bothered by them and was more interested in his eyes that were similar to hers. Rei, that is called the Byakugan, it's one of the 3 great dojutsu of the world, Kazumi explained to her granddaughter. Naruto nodded in confirmation of what she said. And you have the clear eye, a dojutsu that is nearly extinct and evolved of another. Naruto returned, showing that he too knew about their bloodline. Kazumi agreed, impressed. You said that you had a bloodline unique to you. Isn't the Byakugan a Hyuga clan bloodline? She inquired in interest. While that is true, I actually have multiple bloodlines, and the Hyuga inherited Byakugan from my clan, the Otsutsuki clan, Naruto replied. The next moment he held his hand out and a kunai formed within his hand from particles of chakra. Kazumi and Rei watched in amazement as he twirled the now fully formed kunai around his hand before tossing it up in the air, and it dissolved back into oblivion. That is just one of the abilities of my bloodline. The smoke you saw earlier is also a part of my bloodline, Naruto explained. He usually wouldn't be this open with information, but he felt that he could trust Kazumi and Rei. They are oppressed, Hiding, scorned for being different. Interesting. May I inquire what you are doing in this village? You are obviously not native to the land of grass. Naruto nodded at her deduction. I have a goal, a dream if you wish. I want to create a village for all of those who are scorned, hated, and despised unjustly. A place where me, my family, and my friends can live. Naruto revealed. Where is your family? Rei asked innocently, quite interested with what Naruto was saying. On top of that, she found how he looked was pretty cool. Most of my family is long dead, though some of them still live today, Naruto answered vaguely. Kazumi could tell it wasn't a straight answer and changed the subject. How do you plan to create this village? Kazumi could honestly say that what he wanted to build was very enticing, and with the power she sensed from him, she was willing to believe that when he got older, he could achieve his goals. She couldn't explain it, but something in her motivated her to go with this strange horned boy. I am first collecting my scattered family before building my village. I've mostly decided to build it on an island in the land of water, Naruto replied. He'd thought about it and going through the memories of the elemental nation's geography from his father, he had decided on a lovely island in the land of water. Would you be opposed to us coming with you? Kazumi asked, surprising Naruto and making Rei jump up and down in happiness. Please, please, please. It's so boring here, and no one likes us. Rei begged, her eyes going wide and begging. That just doesn't look right. Naruto thought as he took in her blank-eyed puppy dog eyes. He turned back to Kazumi, his face grave. I am not opposed to that, but you should know the dangers if you are considering it. Since my travels started, I have fought and run from 2 cages, fought many enemies and killed over 150 shinobi. Naruto's voice was entirely serious, and Kazumi could tell that he wasn't joking, her eyes widening. He fought and survived 2 cages. I am not a stranger to danger, Naruto, was Kazumi's cool reply, her mind almost entirely made up to go with this boy. Regardless of being weaker, she could get her strength back if she actually got out and exercised. No, I suppose you aren't. If you truly wish to come with me, be packed up tomorrow morning. Right now I need to return to my brother and nephew, Naruto said, turning to Rei. I'll see you tomorrow, Rei, regardless of whether or not you come with me, Naruto said, extending his arms out in an inviting way. Rei understood and ran over and hugged him tightly. Thank you for protecting me against the bullies, Naruto, Rei said, backing up and standing near her grandmother. I will come tomorrow and explain more about who I am. I know I didn't give you much about me. But thank you for trusting me regardless. Naruto bowed deeply before dissolving into smoke once more. Kazumi and Rei watched in slight awe as the smoke flowed over the couch and toward the door, sliding underneath the crack and disappearing entirely. Rei watched with wide eyes. Naruto is so cool, she murmured, making her grandmother chuckle. Well, get going then. We have to pack up before he returns, she lightly scolded, knocking Rei out of her funk, who proceeded to tear across the living room into her room. Kazumi chuckled. With Naruto, Naruto's smoke form rose into the air, as he traveled at a leisurely pace across the village. Watching the villagers go about their business below him, he saw the red-headed girl from earlier. Naruto's eyes narrowed as the girl actually pointed directly toward him in the sky, drawing her teammates' attention to the black and white cloud of smoke in the air. Naruto began moving quickly toward the nearby forest as the three, and their Junin-sensei leapt up on the roofs and started following him. Naruto sped up, only able to go so fast in this form. He filtered through the leaves of the trees to the soft grass below. Not wanting to be held up any longer, he shifted into his helix form, 2 strands of black and white chakras circling each other. Focusing on where he wanted to go, he shot through the forest, weaving through the trees at high speed. As soon as he broke the woods, he found the path he had followed here and proceeded to follow it from high above. After a while, Naruto arrived at the place he had been staying with Gaara, alighting on the ground and his body forming between the two rotating strands of chakra before they disappeared. Get what you need? Gaara asked. Having prepared ramen and was currently eating a bowl of it at a sedated pace, if there was one thing Gaara and Naruto agreed on, it was that food was meant to be enjoyed, slowly. Hi, and more. Naruto unsealed a scroll of food supplies before throwing it at Gaara. Gaara didn't even look up as the scroll impacted with his sand and got stuck. Gaara just gave Naruto a, really? Look, to which Naruto shrugged. Naruto walked over and sat down on the grass as Gaara took the scroll from his sand and set it on the ground nearby. Kaguya woke up. He's still weak but stronger than before. I believe he's hunting at the moment. Gaara said, continuing to eat his ramen. Naruto nodded, taking one of his chakra-created bowls and ladling some ramen into it. While Naruto's hands were getting him food, his eyes were searching around the forest. He eventually caught a glimpse of a speeding white blur before it disappeared. Naruto decided trying to follow the speed demon of a Biju was a lost cause. Something interesting happened while I was in the village. Naruto started, getting Gaara's attention, which was him essentially glancing at Naruto before returning to his food. I met a girl named Rei. She was being bullied for being different. I scared the bullies off and eventually took her back to her grandmother. Naruto said, pausing as he took another bite of ramen. Gaara didn't comment, knowing there was more to the story. Both Rei and her grandmother possess a nearly extinct dojutsu called the Clear Eye, a dojutsu that my mother invented. It's extremely powerful in creating illusions and genjutsu, Naruto said, getting Gaara to finally actually look like he was listening. Naruto then began telling Gaara everything that had happened while in the village, eventually ending on how Kazumi and her granddaughter would be traveling with them. Won't that slow us down? Besides, we have been attacked multiple times since we began traveling. As you said, Kazumi-san is old. Gaara commented in his typical monotone, having finished his bowl. I have a solution for that, though you may not like it, Naruto said, wincing slightly at Gaara's utterly dead stare. I suggest that you, Kokuo Oiko, Rei, and her grandmother stay here. I will travel on with my helix form and locate the remaining Biju, bringing them back with me if possible. Gaara's expression never changed, but Naruto knew that he was processing over his suggestion from a logical view. I agree, was Gaara's simple response before sand moved across the table, picking up all the used dishes and the pot all at once. Gaara began walking toward a stream, all the used cooking ware and bowls being carried by his sand. Very well. Rei sat on the couch of the living room, barely containing her excitement. She was currently staring at the doorway to their home, waiting impatiently for Naruto to appear. On the other couch sat her grandmother next to a satchel. Inside the bag were several sealing scrolls that held everything that they wanted to bring. UHHG, when is Naruto getting here? Rei groaned, flopping over on the couch dramatically. Kazumi chuckled at her granddaughter's antics. I'm sure he will be here soon, Kazumi said, though she wondered if Naruto was okay or if perhaps he had been attacked. Her concerns were proved unfounded as a black and white smoke filtered into the apartment from under the door, a moment later materializing into Naruto. His keen pale eyes taking in the chamber, and seeing the satchel that Kazumi was carrying, as well as seeing through the bag, he realized that they were coming with him. Ready to go then? Naruto asked, happy that he had gained 2 new friends. Kazumi nodded and stood, while Rei shot up out of her chair and ran to Naruto. You've got to tell me how you do that smoke thing. It's so cool. Naruto smiled at the white-eyed girl's excitement. He wasn't wearing his hood or face mask, and his horns were clearly visible. Maybe, Naruto said teasingly, getting a pout from the girl. Rubbing her head, he followed Kazumi out the door. She waited for them both to pass before slapping a piece of paper on the door. Shooing them up quickly, she shut the upper door with a slam. Naruto was slightly confused until he felt the ground shake and heard a muffled explosion. Naruto's Byakugan could now see into what was Rei's home, and it was a mess, collapsing quickly. Explosive seals? Naruto inquired, getting a nod from Kazumi. Naruto noticed then that she limped slightly as she walked away from the door. Seeing a chance to be helpful, Naruto brought chakra outside his hand and concentrated on forming a cane. 3 minutes later he handed the simple light brown walking stick to Kazumi, who took it gratefully. While traveling with me, you may find yourself in a tough spot. Naruto winced for a second. Anyway, that cane can be a sword if you so wish. Channeling chakra into it will change the shape into a simple tanto. Naruto explained. Kazumi raised an eyebrow before holding the cane in front of her and channeling chakra into it. True to Naruto's word, it changed shape into a simple tanto, the handle the same light brown color. Alright, let's go then. Naruto's temporary camp. Gaara glanced up from the scroll he was reading on how to walk on trees when he sensed and heard people walking toward the clearing. He realized that one of the people was Naruto a second later from his powerful natural aura. Gaara observed with interest as two people followed Naruto out of the bushes and into the clearing they had been staying in. A ways off in the shade of several large trees near the vine hut lay the sleeping form of the gobi. Whoa! Large horse. Gaara's attention was drawn to the small girl Naruto had described. She had light blue hair and completely blank eyes, which made it impossible to tell where she was looking. Slightly behind her was an elderly lady with gray hair. She wore a simple garb like her granddaughter. Her eyes were also the same as the girl Gaara identified as Rei. He offered a greeting in the form of a nod before turning back to the scroll he was reading. He was never one for introductions or pleasantries. That's the gobi, isn't it? Kazumi asked in shock, staring at the white sleeping form of the horse-like dolphin Biju. Hi, I know I have a lot to explain. But he is my nephew. Naruto replied, getting a look of shock and incredulity from his traveling companions. That there is Gaara of the Sand Waterfall, Sabaku no Gaara. Naruto introduced his friend, who only turned and nodded again before returning to his scroll. You will be staying here for a while, so why don't you go inside and get settled? Naruto gestured toward the vine dome that they slept in. Rei nodded excitedly, dragging her grandmother toward the dome by her hand. As they got close to the dome, Naruto waved his hand, and a section of the vine wall moved out of the way for them. Do you have Mokuden as well, Naruto? Kazumi asked, wonder on her features, though she was starting to realize that with Naruto everything was a surprise. Mokuden. I don't know what that is. Naruto replied, but before Kazumi could explain it, Rei gave a tug on her arm and pulled her toward the entrance. As they got closer, they walked past the giant form of the sleeping gobi, who was now roughly the size of a Ford truck. Rei stared at the Biju in wonder and amazement for a moment before pulling her mother inside of the dome, disappearing from view. Ka-san, what is Mokuden? Naruto asked his mother but didn't get a response surprisingly. Confused he tried again but got no response. A second later he felt his father connect to his mind. He felt his father's love for his mother as he saw mental images of his mother sleeping peacefully in the soft grass of his mindscape. Nodding in understanding, he sent the conscious confusion related to Mokuden to his father. He felt and experienced his father's understanding of his question before he was sent memories of his father inventing the Mokuden based on his own control over plants. The Mokuden wasn't anywhere near as powerful as his own powers, but it allowed the user the control over trees and plants to an extent. He felt, saw, and heard his father and mother talking about who to give the Mokuden to, eventually deciding on a young boy named Hashirama Senju. Originally the Mokuden was a bloodline that could be transferred via heredity and was meant to be the Senju bloodline like the Sharingan was the rival clans, the Uchiha. Though years later when Kaguya saw how the Mokuden was used to easily force the Kyuubi into an adult host without killing the host, she realized that it was just too powerful. The DNA of Hashirama was changed in his sleep, removing his ability to pass down the Mokuden. Naruto saw a memory through his father's view of the world. In it was an older Hashirama Senju using the Mokuden to construct most of Konoha. Next to the brown-haired man stood a man with long spiky black hair wearing some form of red armor. The memories faded away and Naruto sent his thanks to his father for the explanation. As Naruto sat on the ground processing this and thinking about other things, Rei and Kazumi came back out of the dome. Rei rushed over to him and sat down with a plop. Naruto, did you make that hut thing? It's so cool. The flowers glow. Rei said excitedly, blabbering on about all the cool things within the dome, and the grass. It's so soft. How did you do that? By this time Kazumi had hobbled over and sat down next to Rei, Naruto chuckling at the young girl's excitement. Here, watch. I'll show you. Rei and her grandmother watched as a large vine grew out of the ground next to Naruto. On the edge of the vine a beautiful azure flower grew. Naruto plucked the flower off before leaning over and putting it in Rei's hair. Rei's eyes widened as she reached up and felt the flower, her face displaying her delight. Kazumi looked over at Naruto and smiled in thanks. How did you do that, Naruto? Rei asked, holding the large blue flower in her hands. My father, among other things, gave me control over the plants of this world. Kazumi raised an eyebrow at this, surprised but not as much as she would have been when she first met Naruto. Who is your father, Naruto? Kazumi asked curiously. How can his father give him control over all plants? She wondered. It sounded like Mokuden, which would mean Hashirama Senju. But Naruto was too young to be his son. Before I explain that to you, I must tell you about the history of this world. Naruto began. For the next 2 hours he explained most of his family history to Kazumi, though he kept a good number of things to himself. But he told most of it, his parents, the Biju, the Otsutsuki clan that wasn't from this world. How he wasn't even partly human. That's amazing, Naruto, so your father is the Kaminoki of this planet. Kazumi summarized, wrapping the long conversation back around to her original question. Hi. It was at this moment that the now awake Gobi decided to trot over before laying down gracefully behind Naruto, wrapping his tails around Naruto affectionately. So, if I understand this correctly, the Biju are all your nephews? Kazumi asked, making eye contact with the ancient creature of power that was lying behind Naruto. Naruto just nodded, stroking one of the Gobi's tails. Rei looked like she really wanted to reach out and touch one of the horse's tails that was closer to her. Kokuo raised an eyebrow in amusement before moving one of his beige-tipped tail into the girl's range. Rei looked up at him, seeming to ask for permission. The Gobi nodded, and faster than the Biju could blink, the excitable little blue-haired human had latched onto his tail with a death grip. Surprised at first, he got over it as the female human began stroking his tail. Naruto just smiled before turning back to Kazumi. So, please tell me about your dojutsu, I'm intrigued. Kazumi nodded. It's called the clear eye. It allows the user to see great distances in an unobstructed straight line. It also allows the user to create powerful illusions from their imagination, similar to the Kurama clan within Konoha. The illusions created by the clear eye are strong enough to fool the Sharingan and Byakugan. Kazumi said, getting a nod from Naruto. It's not strong enough to fool an eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, or above though. Kaguya interjected. Mother, did you enjoy your nap? Naruto asked, his voice slightly teasing. Yes, I did, thank you, Masuko. When Naruto's eyes refocused, he found Kazumi. Looking at him, it was hard to tell with her lack of an iris or pupil. What was that? You just zoned out there for a moment. Kazumi inquired with a raised eyebrow. I was talking to my mother, Naruto explained, having already told them the gist of how his mother was inside his head among other things during their long talk. He got a nod from the white-haired woman. Anyway, I would like to ask if you can train me, Kazumi-san. In a couple of weeks I will be leaving to go find my other nephews if I can. You and Rei will stay here with Gaara until I return. Naruto explained. That's fine by me, I was a Junin of my village after all. Kazumi replied. She said as she looked around the clearing, Naruto looking at her, confused. Kazumi went through hand seals before muttering something he didn't catch. Naruto looked around, his Byakugan not picking anything up. She used a clear eye genjutsu. Naruto realized, changing his chakra flow, he deactivated his Byakugan and activated his 3-tomo Sharingan. The genjutsu was still not visible, so he poured more chakra into it, spinning and evolving into his Mangekyo Sharingan. Naruto was finally able to see a translucent dome covering the area within they resided. Naruto, your eyes are red, Ray said, pointing at him in awe. Kazumi spun around and observed his eyes in shock. You have the Sharingan as well. On top of that a Mangekyo. Kazumi's jaw really did drop open in shock at that. Yes, Kazumi-san, the Sharingan was discovered by my older brother 3,000 years ago. I gained my Mangekyo a couple of weeks ago, Naruto replied, his Mangekyo deactivating and fading back to his normal pale eyes. Ka-san, I thought you said only an eternal Mangekyo Sharingan wouldn't be fooled by clear eye genjutsu. What is the difference between an eternal and normal? Naruto questioned. To understand that you must first understand the downsides to having a Mangekyo. Every time it's used it decreases the user's sight until eventually, they go blind. Kaguya said in her lecture voice, but was interrupted by Naruto's frantic voice, I'm going to go blind. No, I thought perhaps you would, which is why I said not to use your Mangekyo for now. But the fact that you are able to see through the old lady's genjutsu and my looking at your eyes leads me to believe that your eyes already are an eternal. You probably have your father to thank for that. He did change your eyes apparently. Kaguya reassured her son, I understand, thank you Ka-san. Naruto replied, an eternal didn't have the side effect of going blind and was probably more powerful. You're welcome, Masuko. This doesn't mean you should just whip out your Mangekyo for everything though. Naruto nodded, refocusing back on the world around him. He found Kazumi once again sitting in front of him, though she seemed to be having a mental conversation with Kokuo. Ray was sitting in front of Gaara asking him questions about his sand. Naruto smiled, glad to have found friends that he could trust. A Megakure. A couple of days after the massacre. Nakata awoke slowly, his eyes fluttering as he slowly came back to the land of the living. He wasn't surprised to realize he couldn't remember how he ended up here, used to such occurrences from his life in Konoha. He'd had only recently come to a Megakure with his cousin, and life had been much better since then. Konan-sensei and Yahiko-sensei took care of him when Nagato-sensei was busy running the village. If all three of them were occupied, then he got to spend time with his new friend Okawa-san, who always took him for ramen or taught him a new jutsu. Village, office, Biju, Kyubi. Nakata's mind fully kicked into a functioning mode and he remembered. The strange pale horn boy, he had felt, a bond of some kind to the boy, respect of some kind. And he called me Kyubi, he thought in confusion, trying to make sense of his memories. The metal door slid open with a slight hiss, he looked up to find the concerned faces of his three sensei. Are you alright Nakata-kun? Konan's voice conveyed her concern for him, making him feel warm inside. He was so happy to finally have people who cared for him. Hi, Nakata stammered out, Nagato-sensei, why did he call me Kyubi? Nakata asked, looking into the matching violet eyes of his cousin. Nagato sighed deeply, I wasn't planning to tell you for another few days until I had things prepared, but I wasn't going to keep this from you, okay? Nakata nodded, confused but he trusted his older cousin. Nakata, sealed within you is the Kyubi, the strongest of the Biju, that's why everyone hated you in Konoha. Nakata's expression was one of understanding, then rage. They attacked me because of that. I didn't even know. Nakata yelled. He understood the concept of sealing since Nagato had been training him in Fuinjutsu when they arrived in a Megakure. All three of his senseis looked miserable, and he calmed down, not wanting to upset them. I'm sorry, Nakada. Nakada only nodded shakily, trying to process this. Everyone hated me in Konoha, for something I didn't even know. Who sealed the Kyuubi into me? Why? Nakada, that white-haired boy, the one named Shiori Oni. You must stay away from him, he wants to take you and absorb your biju, I'm sure of it. Nagato stated, anger evident in his voice, bringing Nakada out of his depressing thoughts. He didn't seem so bad, Nagato-sensei, Nakada said innocently, confused as to why his cousin seemed so against the boy. Nakada-kun, the boy killed over 80 shinobi, near instantly and without a second thought. Konan paused, drawing Nakada's attention to her. Okawa was killed by him. Konan trailed off, seeing Nakada's shock and then tears. Konan grimaced. Okawa had been one of the Junin Nakada met when he first came to the village, and they had gotten along very well. During Nakada's free time after training, he often went out and got ramen with Okawa and Yahiko if Yahiko wasn't busy. As much as Konan hated to admit it, the three of them didn't have as much time to train Nakada as they would have liked. Nagato was the Amekage of the village. She and Yahiko were the two second most powerful shinobi in the village. They often went on dangerous missions and dealt with matters for Nagato around the land of rain. On such times they often left Nakada in Okawa's capable hands. Nakada was devastated. Staring at the wall, one could observe the rage and hatred entering his eyes. The three AIM orphans were all surprised when Nakada's eyes suddenly formed into the Sharingan, one eye having 3 tomo and the other 2. I will kill him, Nakada screamed. Okawa-san, he killed him. Land of Grass. 1 month later. Goodbye, Ray-chan. Don't worry though, okay? I'll be back soon. Naruto reassured the young girl, who was currently wrapped around his waist, holding tightly to his kimono and sobbing. She didn't want Naruto to leave. Why, you promise? Ray said, looking up at him with those white eyes of hers. Naruto nodded, giving the girl a hug. I promise, Ray-chan. Now go back to your Oba-san, okay? Ray nodded, releasing herself from him and backing up to stand next to Kazumi. Good luck, Gaara said, his voice emotionless but his eyes conveying his real thoughts to Naruto. Naruto nodded in appreciation. The now fully recovered Gobi stood behind them all, but still at a smaller size. Apparently an ability all Biju possessed. See you all soon. Naruto waved, his body dissolving into 2 strands of rotating black and white chakra. The next moment the helix-like form thrust into the air, disappearing from sight. Come Ray, let's make lunch. Kazumi said kindly. Out of the 4 people, Ray took Naruto's leaving the hardest. Over the last month, Ray and Naruto had gotten close, Ray even referring to Naruto at times as an older brother. But even though they had a close relationship, Ray still profoundly respected Naruto. Both Kazumi and Ray realized that eventually, Naruto would be their Kage. He was the leader of their little band. Kazumi and Ray began collecting the supplies they would need to cook lunch, Gaara disappearing into the tree line, most likely to hunt. The Gobi walked back over to his favorite spot by the hut, lying down and watching the 2 she-humans go about making food. Kazumi had no doubt after a month of knowing Naruto that he would create his village. Naruto was impressive and with the full backing of his parents could wipe out a village. She had been training both Naruto and Gaara in shinobi skills, things they were lacking, and while Gaara had to go through chakra control exercises, Naruto quickly mastered tree walking and water walking. Gaara's a strange one, but then again, they are both strange. I suppose I have no right to judge though. Kazumi mused, helping her granddaughter cut the potatoes. Among other things, she had worked on getting herself into better physical strength. Good luck, Naruto-kun. With Naruto sometime later. Naruto stood on a tall hill, at the border between grass and waterfall. With all the training he had done this month, he had been able to increase the speed of his helix form by a significant margin. Naruto folded his hands together behind him as he looked out over the land of waterfalls. To Cloud then, the scrolls one read in Suna and Kazumi Sensei say that the 2 tails and 8 tails reside in Kumo. With that thought, Naruto formed into his helix form and launched himself toward the hidden Cloud village. It took Naruto all of the next day to travel across the vast expanse of space that was the land of waterfall and lightning. It was nightfall when he finally formed back into his human form on a tall mountain looking over the hidden Cloud village. He had easily flown over the Kumo shinobi guards posted all around the village. His Byakugan eyes searched for either of his 2 nephews, roving and darting across the village. The dark night sky obscured the form of the white-haired boy in shadows. His eyes flashed red for a moment before slowly a hood and face mask crawled its way up over his head. The white-haired horned boy made a running jump off the high cliff before spinning and morphing into a double helix, shooting through the dark night sky. Inside Kumogakure, a blonde girl with dark eyes cowered in a cold, wet alleyway. She was crying quietly as she tried to pull herself farther into the corner, deathly afraid of being found. The 8-year-old girl cringed as she heard the sound of steps nearby, sobbing quietly in fear. The girl wished desperately that the shinobi entrusted to watch over her by the recently passed 3rd Raikage were there. But they were nowhere to be found. They had all abandoned her, just like everyone else. The new Raikage was not as kind to her or many people within the village, believing in an even more controlling method of ruling than his father. 3 weeks ago, the 3rd Raikage had died protecting a large squadron of his men. His son, had been made the Yondaime Raikage days later. Yugito had quickly realized that the new Raikage did not look upon her favorably, not wanting to return to a life of abuse she had hidden in the slums of the village, and she wasn't faring very well. Her clothes were torn and stained red with blood. On top of that, she was starving and dehydrated. Come on out, kitty, you can't stay hidden forever. When I find you, I'm going to enjoy breaking you into a fine weapon for Kumo, or maybe I'll just have some fun, and then kill you. Yugito heard the scary voice of her pursuer, a Junin of Cloud that seemed to personally hate her. She scurried farther into the corner as his voice rang out closer. No one will accept you, demon. No one will love you. The only reason Raikage-sama hasn't called a cat hunt on you is cause he believes that you can be a powerful weapon for Kumo. I think he's wrong, but who am I to decide? The man continued on, his voice sounding fainter as he talked. Yugito peeked out from where she was hiding. Seeing the alleyway empty, she sighed in relief. He's finally gone. Boo! Yugito shrieked and leapt back against the wall, her black eyes wide with fear at the sudden appearance of her hunter. I found you, the man said in a sing-song voice. The man drew a kunai slowly, threateningly, enjoying the look of fear on her face as he brought it closer to her. Yugito closed her eyes, trying to refuse the reality before her. A moment later she heard a thud. It's not nice to pick on children, especially one important to me. A young, symphonious and soothing voice echoed lightly around the alley. Yugito's eyes shot open, taking in the fact that the Junin was now on the opposite side of the alleyway. Next to her stood a boy near her age wearing a white kimono, his head and face covered by a white hood and face mask. Her eyes darted back to the Junin as he groaned, getting to his feet. When she looked back to the boy that was next to her, he was gone, not a trace was left. Show yourself, the Kumo shinobi yelled, only to fly across the alleyway into another wall. The side of his head burned severely. The ninja screamed in pain as he collapsed to the ground. I didn't even see anything hit him. If that boy is here to hurt me, I'm screwed. Yugito thought in a panic, totally forgetting the strange boy's earlier words. Yugito's eyes shot around the alleyway, trying to find a way to escape with her life. Suddenly, in the corner of her eye, she saw a shadow near her move, the boy in white forming out of thin air within the shadows. Yugito for the first time saw the pale eyes of the boy, his face and head obscured by his hood and face mask. She also noticed that she was somewhat taller than the boy. Are you okay? Don't worry, I'm not here to hurt you. The boy spoke, standing a respectful distance away from her. He extended his hand and she looked at him suspiciously. My name is Naruto Otsutsuki, what is yours? At this Yugito's eyes widened slightly, feeling a jerk from within her own body. What do you want? Yugito asked suspiciously. Getting to her feet, she stared into the barely visible pupil-less eyes of the boy in front of her. Believe it or not, I desire to help you. One can easily see that you are miserable and despised here in Kumo. The boy who had introduced himself as Naruto gestured to the apparently knocked out Kumo Junin on the ground a couple of feet off. It's not my fault. Everyone is afraid of me, hates me. No one will come near me. Yugito said defensively. A lady just last week said that I might attack them if they got too close. She fought down her tears, determined not to show weakness in the face of apparent death. Do you know why you are treated like that? Naruto inquired, his eyes firmly on the girl in front of him. At least that's what it appeared like. In truth, his vision was scanning around them, making sure no one snuck up on them. Something to do with the Nibi. I've heard people say that it was captured by Oji-san, Yugito replied warily, backing up carefully. She stopped as her back reached the wall. What could she say? The boy in front of her was scary. Naruto stared at her. According to Kazumi-sensei, the Nibi was captured by the third Raikage. She must have known him. Strange that she would be despised so soon after the man's passing, Naruto mused. As he had been searching for the girl, he'd heard talk of the Three Roads' recent death from villagers' conversations. That's very interesting, isn't it? Container of the Nibi. Yugito gawked into the barely visible eyes of the boy in front of her, her mind locking up in shock. It all makes sense now. Naruto raised a hand and placed 2 fingers on her forehead. The last thing Yugito heard was, time to wake up Matabi-chan. Yugito collapsed in Naruto's arms a moment later. Holding her, he jumped up to the rooftop, keeping his eyes roving around him for any shinobi nearby. Did you really have to do it like that, Naruto-kun? Kaguya said with some amusement at her son's solution to waking up the second part of her power. Matabi is sleeping inside the girl mother, presumably since she was sealed. I had to wake her so that she could meet her host. Speaking of which, she didn't tell me her name. She's very untrusting, and I think meeting Matabi Mako will be good for her. Naruto replied to his mother, making his way across the rooftops as silently as possible and avoiding the guards. Next morning, the blonde girl's eyes shot open. Leaping to her feet and extending her hands in a claw shape, she snarled as she took in her unfamiliar surroundings. She was in a cave of some kind. Lining the ceiling were several flower bulbs that glowed with a warm yellow light. In front of her was a fire, surrounded by rocks. It was only then that Yugito took in the calm boy sitting directly across the fire watching her. He's got horns, was her first thought, quickly taking in the admittedly strange appearance of Naruto. Good morning, was Naruto's simple greeting, followed by a small bow of his head. Yugito stared at the Kaminoki child for several moments, organizing her thoughts from her long extensive talk with the Nibi last night. She had woken up within her mind, directly in front of the cage that held the large hellcat. Nibi had explained what she was, why and how she was there, and what Naruto was and that she should trust him. Yugito felt overwhelmed, but after realizing that the Nibi had been the one who had been taking care of her since she was 2, she quickly decided to trust the giant feline's words. My apologies for my rudeness, Naruto-sama. My name is Yugito ni. Yugito gave a respectful bow, sitting down on the other side of the fire. Matabi had explained just what Naruto was, and truth be told, if she hadn't already feared the power of the boy, she did now. He's the freaking son of the 2 creators of all chakra on earth. Yugito thought in awe, respect, and fear. Yes, I know. Isn't it delightful, kitten? We have waited for thousands of years for his arrival, and now he's finally here. Matabi giggled in her mind. There is no need to refer to me as such, though you have my gratitude for the respect. Naruto bowed his head again. He had been taking lessons with his mother at night about proper manners and etiquette as the heir to the Otsutsuki clan. Yugito only nodded, unsure how to respond. Naruto continued on, unperturbed, as I am sure my niece explained to you, I wish to find and help all the Biju, as well as collect their payment to my mother. Naruto said, getting a nod from Yugito. My larger goal though is to create a village away from the wars of humans, a place where my family can reside in safety, a place for those that are scorned, hated and despised for things out of their control. A place with its own kind of peace where we only look out for own village, encouraging peace and being strong enough to defend our village against those that wish to disturb it. Naruto explained, his voice calm and respectable. Naruto's back was straight and his appearance, along with the clipped eyebrows, really impressed upon Yugito that she was in the presence of someone of extraordinary power. Naruto's lessons with his mother showed, Mother said that while I need to keep my warmer side, I need to have a persona to don in times it's required. That I cannot be friendly to everyone. Naruto recalled, his mother said that while he ought to continue looking for others, he needed to also show that he was going to be their cage. To prove that he was strong enough to be their leader. Yugito meanwhile was gazing at Naruto, finding herself believing that Naruto could accomplish his goals and create such a place where she would be around family and those that cared for her. And I can join this village? Yugito asked, hope and fear present in her voice and face. Naruto smiled, yes Yugito, I'm not just looking for the Biju for what is rightfully my mother's, I know that the Jinchuriki of my nephews and nieces are more often than not scorned. My friend who I lived with in Suna is the container of the one tail, Shukaku. Naruto explained, getting a happy nod from the Nibi container. Thank you Naruto-sama, Yugito said, earning a slight scowl from the Kaminoki, making her giggle. The next day. Good. Again, a cold monotone ordered. A young blue-haired girl nodded in response and began running forward once more, dodging back and forth in an attempt to get as close to as she could to her sensei. Kazumi watched from the shade of a tree. Surprisingly, Koko-san had taken an interest in her work and was sitting behind her, slightly wrapped around where she sat. Kazumi smiled, watching as her granddaughter tried her hardest to reach Gaara. It was actually something she had come up with since Ray had asked to be trained as well a couple of weeks ago. She'd suggested it to Gaara, getting one of his usual nod responses, though she had seen the slight signs that Gaara was going to enjoy this. The white-haired lady winced as Ray was once more batted aside by Gaara's sand, sending her a couple of feet. Good. Again, Kazumi shook her head before focusing on the work before her. Before Naruto had left, he'd explained an idea he had for a seal, actually multiple seals, though it wasn't entirely planned out yet. She had been teaching him Fuinjutsu over the last month, and while he was just a beginner he was adequate at seals, but it was not his strong suit and was something he struggled with. According to his mother, Otsutsuki had always struggled with seals, preferring a less complicated solution. Which was usually brute power, something all Otsutsuki possessed in spades. Naruto had asked her to see if she could create a seal that would allow the one it was applied to use their chakra in a more efficient, more straightforward way. His idea had been that the seal would expand one's chakra network, making their body one large vein of chakra, so to speak. Making the chakra much easier to control and move around one's body. Currently, she had made good progress, finding out that the concept was indeed possible but extremely dangerous. Applying the seal to someone would force all their chakra gates open at the same time permanently. Which would kill anyone in a matter of minutes at the most. Kazumi sighed, scrapping another sheet of paper with a sealing matrix drawn on it aimed toward fixing the issue with the chakra gates. She would somehow need to create a seal gate to replace the destroyed chakra gates, but also be able to be released temporarily up to the 7th gate in case someone wanted or needed to use them. Part of the issue was that Kazumi's understanding of the gates was somewhat limited, sighing she tried another approach in the ceiling matrix. The Gobi snorted as he closed his eyes, getting more comfortable. Kokuo-san. What did I tell you? You blew all my papers over again. Kazumi berated the large horse-like Biju for knocking her stacks of paper over again for the fourth time today. The Gobi's eyes widened in fear of the enraged old lady, cowering away as she came after wielding an ink brush. I'm gonna make it where you can't ever move again. Kazumi yelled, chasing after the now running for his life Biju. Gaara saw from the spot he'd been standing in for the last hour and a half, his arms crossed as he watched the Gobi and Kazumi weave in and out between the trees, Kazumi yelling threats at the Biju as Kokuo ran in fear from the old lady. The scene was almost amusing enough to make Gaara laugh, but he didn't. Gaara frowned. Since his father actually tried to kill him, he'd had a hard time expressing his emotions. You need to move on, Gaara. Your father is a monster, came uncharacteristically supportive reply to his thoughts from the raccoon housed inside him. Gaara quietly sighed, turning to the panting Rei, who was catching her breath after her latest attempt to reach him. Rei had improved from these sessions. At the beginning she couldn't come within 40 feet of him, she could now reach within 15 feet of him before she couldn't dodge the sand. Of course, Gaara wasn't trying his hardest to attack the girl either, so that probably had something to do with it. Take a break, Rei-chan, Gaara said. Getting a nod from his student, he began walking toward the edge of the clearing. Rei watched him disappear into the shadows, his large gourd the last thing to go from view. Shaking her head, she moved toward the hut. Walking inside, she found her bag and fished out a canteen of water before downing a significant amount of it. Rei sighed in satisfaction and laid down on the soft grass of the hut Naruto had constructed. The shelter was about 9 yards in diameter, rising from all sides in a dome and meeting at the top. Woven through the leafy vine walls were several glowing flower bulbs that provided a warm light. Rei laid back on the soft grass, curling into a comfortable position as she decided to take a nap. A few moments later she fell asleep, the exhaustion of the severe training overcoming her. With Naruto and Yugito alighted on the rocky terrain of the land of lighting softly, like a cat. A moment later Naruto formed out of smoke next to her. They had just escaped Kumogakure's vicinity and were now out of range of the guards and patrols. That morning they had moved early to flee the village, Naruto having only taken her to a cave close to Kumo. Having not known if Yugito would want to stay in Kumo or not, he had made sure to wait within a reasonable travel distance to the village in case Yugito wished to return. Having decided to come with him, Yugito followed the Kaminoki's orders. She was to do her best to sneak out of the villages while he would follow her, directing the guards' attention away or getting her out if need be. When the sun was still hiding behind the mountains, and there was a dewy mist covering the mountainous rocky terrain, Yugito and Naruto had set out. Yugito had been shocked as Naruto's body dissolved into smoke before her very eyes. She'd already seen it before, but she hadn't processed it, and the impossibility of such an ability astounded her, but yet he did it with ease. Yugito, Naruto suddenly said, making Yugito stop quickly in her run. Yes, Naruto-sama, she asked, making him sigh at her nickname for him. Mother sensed my brother's chakra inside Kumo for a brief moment. I need to go investigate. Naruto explained, getting a look of confusion from Yugito. Brother? Yes, the one you may know as the Sage of Six Paths. He is the eldest of my mother's children, Naruto replied, his pale eyes bulging ever so slightly as he stared back toward the village, attempting to find the chakra of his brother, but the range was too great, and it had disappeared again. Understood, Naruto-sama. I will wait, Yugito replied, looking around for a place to wait for Naruto's return in the nearby vicinity. Naruto noticed her searching, realizing leaving her out in the open would be wrong. Naruto turned to a nearby wall of rock, pointing his palm at it and drawing Yugito's attention to himself. Dai Hakatsu. The next moment the wall exploded outwards toward them both, smoke pouring out of the hole. Yugito lifted her arms to protect herself. A bit later she cracked her eyes, surprised that none of the rock had hit her. She was about to yell at Naruto for doing that when she saw a wall of thick vines and trees weaved together in front of her. What? You didn't think I was going to hit you with that, did you? Yugito whirled, finding Naruto standing behind her and to her left. She immediately noticed the smirk on his face. Jerk, was her annoyed reply. Turning back to the exploded wall, she found the vines gone, and she was able to see a decently sized cave in the before blank rock wall. As she observed the new cave and the rocks spread across the nearby ground, Naruto walked forward. His chakra extending out of him and latching on to decent-sized stones around him as he walked into the cave, his chakra threads arranged the rocks in a circle in the middle of the new cave. Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu, Naruto said calmly, spitting out a small fireball at the firewood that had suddenly appeared in the center of the rings of rocks. Yugito walked up beside him a moment later, watching in amazement as plants and vines grew out of the very stone, weaving themselves together, creating a wall over the rocky walls of the cave. A moment later several pink, bright bulbs grew upside down on the ceiling, all of them providing calming warm light. Yugito, the blonde's attention was brought back to Naruto as he held out his hand. She observed with confusion the small ball held in his hand. It seemed to be made of glass and held a beautifully intricate design of a yin-yang symbol within it. This is made from my chakra. If you are in trouble, break this orb, and I will come as soon as possible, Naruto explained. Seeing the look of confusion on her face, Yugito nodded and took the orb, slipping it into her pocket. Naruto had kindly formed a whole new set of clothes for her last night from his chakra. His abilities to create things are quite useful. Yugito mused, observing the now inviting and almost quaint cave Naruto had created. I will be back soon. With that, Naruto dissolved into 2 strands of chakra before flying out the entrance of the cave and out of sight. Yugito sighed. Sitting down by the fire, she decided to talk to Matabi-chan. With Naruto, he was weaving and dodging through the spikes of rock that seemed to cover everything in the land of lighting. Naruto spotted a patrol of guards and made his way around them carefully. A couple of minutes later, Naruto rematerialized on top of the Raikage's tower that was attached to the side of a mountain. Naruto's Byakugan scanned across the village, attempting to find the source of Hagoromo's chakra in the village. What could possibly be here that would contain Nisan's chakra? Naruto thought, becoming frustrated as his all-seeing eyes were unable to locate anything. Naruto-kun, to your left. Kaguya's voice chimed out. Naruto immediately obeyed. His vision turning, he saw a brief glimpse of his brother's potent chakra before it vanished. After it faded, Naruto realized it had disappeared behind a door, 3 people having just exited said door. Naruto could make out 2 Junin-level ninja, one wearing an extremely bored expression on his face. Standing in front of the 2 was a huge, muscled man. He noticed immediately the massive weights covering his arms. Nisan's chakra is inside, I'll wait till they leave. Naruto thought, but the next moment he changed his mind. Because it was at that moment that the buff man was surrounded by lightning before he vanished faster than Naruto could see. The next instant Naruto heard lightning, an explosion, and a yell. Turning to the tower underneath him, he was shocked to find the same man underneath him in the Raikage tower. He's fast, too fast for me. Naruto decided, I'll have to come back and search another day. Hagoromo's chakra has waited for a long time, it can wait a little longer. With that decided, Naruto turned into a helix and began to fly away. Because his vision was no longer focused on the village below him, he missed one of the earlier Junin burst into the Raikage's office panting and sweating, yelling about sensing someone on the roof of the tower. What did bring Naruto's attention back to the village was a significant amount of killing intent directed at him. Looking down at the village in surprise, he saw the same buff and dark-skinned man glaring up at him from atop the Raikage Tower, lightning sparking all over his body. Naruto realized he was in trouble quickly. I can't go back to Yugito, this man will follow me. Naruto went the opposite direction of where he was first headed. Instead, he flew as fast as he could across the village, hoping to lose the swift man. It was not to be. Naruto watched as the man rushed across the village, appearing directly under him and staring at him before against disappearing, this time arriving farther in front of him on a roof. Raiden. Yari no Shi. Spear death. Naruto heard the man yell before two bolts of lightning flew toward him. He dodged out of the way of the extremely fast thunderbolts. This is bad, I can't escape from this man with speed alone, I have to lose him somehow. Naruto thought, maintaining a clear head. If you can understand me, land this instant. Naruto heard the large man shout at him. Naruto floated in the air for a few moments. Using his Byakugan he scanned the buildings and the roof the man was on. Good, it has won. Naruto lowered himself to the ground, the dark-skinned man keeping his stare firmly on him. Naruto began forming his real body, adding his hood and face mask to his clothes, which gave him a mysterious look and hid his identity, though mostly he was hiding his horns. Who are you? State your purpose for being here. The buff man ordered gruffly, his lighting chakra still sparking around his tensed form. He observed the youth in front of him carefully. He was unable to see his shadowed face. It's a boy, he can't be that old either judging from his height. I mean no harm, I simply sensed something here that interested me, I was just leaving. The yellow-haired man was startled at the boy's voice. It was smooth, calm, and had a melodic nature to it, coming out soothingly. What did you sense? Who are you? The man interrogated. He noticed his Junin guards leaping across the rooftops toward him and this intruder in his village. It's rude to ask so many questions, you know, I don't even know who you are. The boy's voice was calm, but the man could sense the underlying amused tone. I'm the Yondaime Raikage, and you are trespassing in my village. The Raikage barked at the boy. He could feel a slight unease as he stared at the boy. There was something about him, the way his face was obscured, his head tilted down, the way he held himself was almost like royalty. Oh, very well then. Where is the Hachibi? The out-of-the-blue question surprised the Raikage, but he didn't let it show on his face. Like I would tell you that. Now tell me who you are. He roared, tired of the boy's question dodging. He was just about ready to restrain the boy and take him to a cell to be interrogated for him. The figure raised his head, and the fourth Raikage could make out red eyes before they faded away, only blackness within the hood. The next moment his Junin landed nearby, surrounding the hooded figure in a rough triangle. The Raikage was prepared for it, so he wasn't thrown off guard like his Junin guards see when the boy clothed in white launched forward toward him, kicking him in the chest before leaping across the rooftops. The Raikage immediately followed and appeared in front of the boy, who stopped smoothly before he would have run into the Raikage's ripped torso. You are going to pay for that, boy. The Raikage roared, about to launch forward and lariat the twat. I am not going to pay, Lord Raikage, you are. The boy's head shot up, and the Raikage could discern two pale pupil-less eyes in the shadows of the hood. You hurt my family, and mark my words, I will make you pay. The boy growled, his voice threatening and powerful, ki flowing through the air, but the cage easily ignored it. Chito's no Bakahatsu. The youth threw his hands toward the ground in front of him. The Raikage watched with his lighting-enhanced synapses as the roof between them explode violently. With his super-enhanced speed, he easily outran the explosion and appeared on a nearby rooftop. He stared around the area, trying to locate the boy. C landed next to him a moment later, holding a seal. He's gone, Isama. I growled. Alert the guards, give them the boy's description, he is to be caught alive if possible. I ordered, a moment later disappearing in a blast of wind. He appeared within his office a second later, his lightning fading away. The boy did remind me that I need to find a new host for the Hachibi though, after B's death I have put it off for too long. I mused, already having gone through the grieving from his brother's death. I'll need to look at worthy candidates, and that boy, he had the Byakugan, I'm sure of it, does he know? With Yugito. Yugito was taking a nap, which suspiciously looked like a cat nap. Snoring peacefully, she groaned as she heard her inner demon's voice in her head. Kitten, Naruto-sama is returning. You know, you ought to try to get him when he's young, he's going to be quite the looker one day, Matabi suggested, Matabi-chan. Stop saying things like that, Yugito said, her face red in embarrassment. Though if she was honest, despite the weird horns, Naruto did look good. Speaking of the Kaminoki-san, he appeared in a coil of chakra in the entrance to the cave, quietly walking inside. Did you find what you were looking for? Yugito questioned, seeing Naruto's rather blank face. She frowned when Naruto shook his head. No, I couldn't with the raikage in the village. He is simply too fast for me. As I was trying to leave, he somehow detected me, chasing me across the ground as I flew through the air. I'm simply not fast enough to outrun him. So I was forced to talk to him and create a distraction through which to escape through the air vents. Naruto explained as he sat down. Suddenly, in a puff of smoke, surprising Yugito, cooking supplies appeared in Naruto's lap. Hungry? Yugito nodded quickly, feeling her stomach growl. We cannot stay after we eat. The raikage is sure to begin looking for me and eventually you when he realizes you are gone, Naruto said, pointing his outstretched hand toward the still burning fire. Yugito watched once more as two poles formed on each side of the fire, a pole laying across the flames, connecting to the two poles. Naruto poured the needed ingredients into the pot and water from a recently unsealed canteen before putting the pot over the fire. As I said already, our next target is the Sanbi. Father says that he is somewhere in Land of Water, Naruto said as he stirred the pot, not looking at Yugito as she nodded, but he saw it. Didn't the Land of Water come out of a civil war a couple of years ago? Yugito asked, remembering some history scrolls she had read back when the third raikage was alive. Naruto shrugged, forming two bowls and spoons, ladling some soup into each of their bowls before leaning back. As he leaned back, a large pillow materialized behind him that he leaned against as he ate his soup. Yugito and Naruto quickly finished their food, Naruto resealing the cooking supplies and pot, dispelling his creations with a wave of his hand. Yugito watched as the vines and plants covering the walls of the cave receded into the walls, disappearing entirely a minute later. Let us be off. Yugito nodded, and they ran across the rocky terrain, their arms trailing behind them. Because aerodynamics. 1 week later, Yugito and Naruto shot through the misty trees, Naruto going at a slower pace so as not to leave Yugito behind. They had finally reached the Land of Water a day ago and were steadily heading toward where Naruto's Tusan directed them. It took them another day of travel before they arrived at their destination, the still recovering from the Civil War village hidden in the mist. Well, that's surprising, Naruto commented. He and Yugito stood on a tall hill some distance from the village, far enough where it was impossible to see the village, at least for Yugito. What? My nephew already knows I'm coming, he's pulsing his chakra at regular intervals, Naruto explained, his Byakugan eyes trained on a boy older than himself walking through the village. The boy had long dark brown hair and brown eyes, wearing simple clothing of light colors, with dark blue pants. It seems the container of Isobu container is disliked like yourself, Yugito, Naruto said, scowling as he watched people yell insults at the boy who was around 10 years old, throwing things at him as he passed. Do you wish to come with me to introduce yourself to my nephew's container? Hi. Yugito nodded. Naruto gestured forward, and they began walking toward the mist village, having decided on a more straightforward entrance. They walked down the main foggy road out of the village, passing many travelers leaving and joining the crowds entering. Name and reason for entering? A Miss Junin asked, looking at the strange duo. Naruto wore his regular clothing with his hood and face mask up, while Yugito now wore a dark blue kimono that had designs on it that looked similar to Matabi's Hellfire. Underneath the kimono, she wore close-fitting blue pants. Naruto's head snapped up, causing the Junin's attention to be attracted to him. Naruto's eyes glowed red, 3 tomo spinning around the pupil. Genjutsu. Sharingan. Naruto muttered, catching the unsuspecting Junin under the influence of his eyes. My friend here and I are just visiting to meet a friend who is expecting us, Naruto said. The Junin nodded blankly and gestured for them to go through into the village, calling for the next people as they passed. How did you do that, Naruto? Yugito asked. Naruto turned toward her, and she was taken aback by his ominous glowing red eyes. That is the Sharingan Kitten, a power his brother and my father discovered. Those eyes are powerful enough to subdue even a Biju with relative ease. Matabi explained in her container's head, getting a mental nod from the blonde. Naruto sharply turned away a moment later, his eyes reverting back to his ever-present Byakugan, scanning around the village for the Three Tails container. He found him a moment later, sitting at a table alone in a restaurant that apparently didn't know he was there or didn't dislike him. The brown-haired boy kept checking the entrances every few seconds. How does he know that I'm here? Naruto mused. Isobu was always one of the smartest Biju, and one of the best sensors. He most likely sensed you when you entered the land of water or close to that. Kaguya explained, getting a greeting from her son. Naruto and Kaguya didn't often talk during the day, but they spent their nights together, getting to know each other and Kaguya telling him things about her life before he was born and afterward. Naruto sped up, Yugito falling into step beside him as they walked through the village, weaving between villagers as they headed toward the restaurant. A couple of minutes later, after almost getting bowled over by a group of rowdy kids, Naruto and Yugito entered. Naruto's eyes were already looking at the brown-haired kid who stared back before he even walked into the building. Strolling slowly and with a natural grace, Naruto walked over to the table, followed by Yugito. The brown-haired boy nodded in greeting as they sat down. Isobu gives his welcome and wishes me to express his happiness that you are here, Kaminoki-sama. The boy said, gaining a giggle out of Yugito. The brown-haired boy turned to the girl, confused as to what was funny. Oh, sorry, he just doesn't like being called Sama. I do it anyway just to bother him though, Yugito explained. My name is Naruto Otsutsuki Kaminoki. Naruto interrupted, ignoring Yugito and starting the introductions. Getting her cue, Yugito spoke, my name is Yugito Ni, the container of the Nibi. She waved slightly. The brown-haired boy nodded, my name is Kai, I don't know what my last name is. The now-named Kai gave a small bow of his head. I'm assuming Isobu already explained everything to you. Kai nodded, I have already packed everything that I wish to bring, though it is back at my home. Naruto's clipped circular eyebrow rose in surprise. How did you know? Naruto asked. I guessed mainly, you have finally returned. Isobu owes your mother chakra, and he is the Three Tails, since the Biju are more easily absorbed if done in order by tails, and Isobu sensed the 2 tails with you. I deduced that the Nibi container was traveling with you. I came to the conclusion that you allowed people to travel with you, am I wrong? Kai explained in a tone that sounded almost bored. No, you are not. There is something else you should know, and yes, I am okay with you coming with us. Naruto began, Kai visibly focused on him while Yugito leaned back in her seat, already knowing what Naruto was going to say. I plan to create a village, one where people who are scorned and despised unfairly can come and not be judged, a place that believes in supporting the village and keeping peace only within the village, not trying to force peace on others that do not want it. Being strong enough as well to defend their peace against others. Naruto began. For the next couple of minutes, Kai and Naruto talked about his plans for an eventual village, Kai pointing out a couple of flaws in his thinking which Naruto thanked him for. Go and get what you want to bring and meet us at the gate, Naruto said, standing as Kai and Yugito stood with him. Kai nodded before quickly leaving the restaurant, ignoring the glares of the customers. Naruto looked in distaste at the villagers' biased and cruel hatred of someone who did not at all deserve it. He and Yugito left the establishment in silence, moving across the village toward the gate. End chapter. Leave a review. Don't expect your suggestions to be added. For those of you who think answering reviews in the chapters is adding more words, I put this section at the bottom of my chapter. Also, this chapter is 9,796 words long, so I'm not extending it. The chapter before this one is over 11k words long. My chapters from here out will almost always be around 9k 11k, sometimes longer. Answers to some reviews. Azera's first review on Chapter 4. Minato did seal all of Kyuubi into Nakata. Wasn't done while half dead, and had an Uzumaki on hand to direct the sealing. Kushina can't remember much about her clan because of how young she is, 4 to 5 years old. I changed some things around. Mito Uzumaki did seal the Kyuubi into herself, but I do actually have an explanation as to why she was able to do that. I have a family tree diagram created for this story, which uses Clan BS to explain how the heck stuff works. As to a harem, I'm not particularly interested in writing one. I haven't really put any thought into who Naruto is going to end up with. I plan to write, and if the story flows in that direction, then there you go. All the Biju are not female. Only female ones are Kyuubi, Seiken, Chome, and Matabi. Ezekiel on Chapter 6. I fixed it, and all the ones in previous chapters, as well as went back to update grammar mistakes. Expect the first posting of the chapter to potentially have errors, if you keep pointing them out. I'll keep going back and correcting them. Winking face. Striker the Fallen. Thank you. Will do the best I can. Azera on Chapter 5. There is not going to be any yaoi, I have zero desire to write that. Yes, I could have changed characters around, but I decided to do this. Moonlight Slayer. Thank you for pointing that out, I went back and changed it. I meant to before uploading it as I changed my mind later on. Azera on Chapter 6, July 2nd, because the Rinne Sharingan came first. Kaguya got her Rinne Sharingan from the God Tree, as it's literally his eye. Both the Sharingan and Rinnegan are descendants of the Rinne Sharingan. It also has its own set of powers and allows me to make up some of my own for it. Reaper on Chapter 6. My friend, I don't think you've actually watched the anime. Because your review is totally